Hello, my name is Alexis Cole, and I'm the director of jazzvoice.com. And this evening, it gives me great delight to introduce Mark Winkler. Mark wrote this incredible book. Yay! And we'll take a screenshot of everybody who's got the book later. And Mark's been teaching classes on jazzvoice.com for the last few years and is a super beloved teacher. And he also attended this year and taught for us at the Vocal Jazz Summit in Virginia Beach, which was amazing. Mark
It
is
was amazing.
it was amazing, right? Oh, it was so great
Oh,
to
I
have
had
you
such a
there.
great time.
Yes. So Mark is super accomplished. I know that you guys who are here know all his accolades. And so not we know him mostly as an educator, but of course, as a songwriter, he's been extremely prolific and accomplished. And we're very, very lucky to have him here. Thank you for celebrating your book release with us here on jazzvoice.com. How are you doing this evening, Mark?
I'm doing great. I'm seeing all
Wonderful.
my friends. How can I not do good? Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, we were just catching up with everybody who's here for a few minutes before we started. But Mark, do you want to kick it off by telling us a little bit about how you came to write the book?
Yeah. Well, it was the pandemic, really. In
Oh, yeah.
2020, pandemic hit, and I thought, what am I going to do with myself? And I did two things. I cleaned the garage, which was quite a feat. It was quite
Awesome.
messy.
Mhm.
And I wrote this book. And I've been meaning to write a book. I've been teaching, by that time, I'd been teaching about 17 years songwriting, and I had a pretty good syllabus. And I thought I was going to use that as the basis for the book. So a lucky thing happened, and that was a student was recommended to me by Chris Loudon, who is the jazz critic for Jazz Times Magazine.
Yeah, Hearing Voices. He's written about me and probably all of us a few times. He's
He
great.
was, well, he's passed away.
I did. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and he was just a lovely guy, so supportive of the jazz community, jazz singers. And he had a friend who he lived with actually from time to time. She was an editor. She edited USA Today and other magazines. And I gave her songwriting lessons, and she edited my book. And every week I'd write a chapter. And at first, I followed my syllabus, and but I soon realized it was a little too dry. So what I did is I put in anecdotes about my 40 years of being a songwriter, and anecdotes that would relate to the book, and that sort of livened up the book. And then once that happened, once I found my voice, it was pretty easy to write the book. So that's how the book got started. It took me there's 28 chapters in the book. It took me 28 weeks, probably 30 weeks to do the first draft of the book.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
so awesome.
Can I read like the introduction
Yeah.
to the book? It's
I
real
was going to
short.
ask. That's great.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this sort of says a lot in a way. This is the introduction. I wish I remembered the name of the guy who saved my songwriting career. It was a long time ago, about 1974. I've asked a few of my friends, but no one can remember him. All I can recall is that he was a crusty, no-nonsense older man. I remember his office was on the Sunset Strip, but every LA music publisher's office was on Sunset in those days. Up until that time, I had been writing songs without any formal instruction. I already knew the drill, and I played and sang him my 3 songs. To give you an idea of the quality of my material, one song was called King Kong. Since his secretary or a phone call didn't interrupt my songs, and he didn't cut me off after a verse or two, I thought that maybe this time I'd get somewhere. After finishing my songs, he looked at me and asked, "Who do you think you write like?" Since I was a middle-class Jewish guy who played the piano and favored the Great American Songbook, I answered, Randy Newman. I even played this guy, I Want to Be Bored with You, a song that I thought captured Newman's signature jaunty, yet nostalgic chords. My would-be publisher crossed his arms and said, "No, you're not good enough to be Randy Newman. You need to take some songwriting classes. No coddling from this guy." Naturally, my heart sank and I went through the 7 stages of grief in 30 seconds on a loop and left the office feeling really mad at this guy. Now, I'd like to give him the medal, thank him for being honest with me and for changing my life. After my ego recovered, I enrolled in this crazy 1970s learning institution called the Sherwood Oaks Experimental College and took my first songwriting class with a seasoned songwriter, Al Kasha, a 2-time Academy Award Best Song winner. You might remember one of his songs, The Morning After. Taking Al's class changed my life. It taught me the rules for writing a good song. It also introduced me to 3 songwriting partners for the next few years and an ex-girlfriend. But most importantly, it started me on a songwriting journey that I'm still enjoying to this day. Since I'm probably, well, I'm imagining the people that I'm writing this book for are in their 20s, 30s. Maybe that was foolish of me, but I say at the end, since I'm probably older than most of you are and somewhat crusty, perhaps I can do the same for you. So the funny thing, thank you. The funny thing is, the minute I met my editor for the book, I mentioned this guy to her, and she immediately knew who it was. Within, I don't know, 20
Oh,
seconds.
that's crazy.
So he passed away, and but he worked at 20th Century Publishing. And she said, yeah, there was one guy who was very nice there, and then there was one guy who was sort of crusty, and he'd tell you the truth. So she showed me his picture, and I said, oh yeah, that's the guy.
So great. Wow, that's cool. You uncovered the mystery. Just
Yeah,
forward.
within 20 seconds. So this book, well, a lot of you have taken my class. So basically,
Wait, can we see show of hands who's taken the class?
oh
Oh,
wow,
that's great. Wonderful.
still alive. Okay.
Yeah.
I basically do the my top tips, my top 10 tips for songwriting. And then I do exercises, fun exercises to explore, to write. I get people writing right away. I believe writing is what is going to teach you how to write. You know, writing shows you on its own what you're good at and what you're not. Like I learned that I was an art major in college. So I'm really good at furniture, which is picture words, verbs and nouns that are specific and are very visual. I'm really good at pictures and songs, which is a really good thing to be. But I'm not the greatest rhymer in the world. I'm definitely not Stephen Sondheim. And I'm also not terribly funny in my songs. I'm sort of cute, but I'm not funny. So writing taught me that on its own. So the book is, and then I do little anecdotes in the book.
Great.
Any questions? Does anybody have any questions? And I'll okay. Ooh, Cass, I saw your hand go up.
Can you tell it? Can you give us an anecdote?
Yes. Oh, I was going to. Wait a minute.
Do you want to stick to your outline and do the top 2 tips and do the
Yeah.
anecdote later? We could.
Oh, sorry.
I'll give an anecdote. Let me find it. How do I find it? No. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I promise I'll get back to you, Cass, and give you an anecdote. My top 2 tips are, the number 1 tip is, let me grab this. Oh, this isn't my top 2 tips. Okay, my top 2 tips. Let me get to my book. Okay. You're my guinea pigs. This is my first reading. So, okay, page 33.
We're honored, Mark. Thank you for making us first.
Okay, my first number one tip is come up with a great title. I know that I'm talking to an amateur when I ask them at the beginning of their song, when they're beginning to write it, what's the title? And they go, I don't know. I haven't come up with it yet. Amazingly, if you'd ask any songwriter from Stephen Sondheim to Sting that question, they'd answer it. I'd say 90% of professional songwriters start with the title. Now, a great title is more than half the battle in songwriting because it tells you what to write. It attracts your listener because it's catchy. It's specific. It sets the direction of the song. And much like a name for a cologne, a car, a cereal, clever song titles can brand a singer. So I'm a title freak. People who take my classes know that I love titles more than anything. And titles have changed my life. Okay, I'll tell you an anecdote. This is the anecdote. It's not in my book. Maybe it is in my book. I can't remember. I had a really good friend. My late husband's best friend was the artistic director of a gay theater company in Los Angeles. And he put on lots of great shows. But he found out that the only shows that got big audiences were musicals and shows where the guys were naked. So one day he comes over to the house to have dinner. And he goes, I've got the title of my next show. And Mark, I want you to write a song for it. And I go, okay. I said, what's the title? Because I was into titles. And he said, Naked Boys Singing. And I said, that's a great title. And he said, yeah, people like naked guys and they like singing. So I put the two of them together. And I want this show not to be dirty. I want this to be fun. You know, I want us to, you know, to be on the light side of it. And I said, great. And he said, I want you to write a song or two songs. And I said, yes, because I always say yes when somebody asks me to do something in show business. That's a really good thing to do. But here's the truth of the matter. I have never been naked in my life. I'm a pretty modest person. And, you know, I never was naked. So, I mean, I've been naked a few times. I take a shower and I'm naked, but it's not like I'm naked all the time. So I had to think, you know, what I was going to write about. And I did, you know, I came up with that I loved beefy guys. This is before Bears. This was in 1998. And, you know, I don't like guys that look like girls. I like guys that look like guys. So my favorite guy was Robert Mitchum, the movie actor. So I wrote this song called Robert Mitchum. And in the song, I go, as for me, I long for the days of Robert Mitchum. I know he was a little beefy and soft, but when he took it all off, he was bitching. So, you know, so that was my Robert Mitchum song. And then I wrote another song about an actor who poses for Playgirl magazine. And it was called Nothing But the Radio On. And that's what Marilyn Monroe said when she posed for the calendar and she was naked. And they asked her, what did you have on? And she said, oh, I had the radio on. You know, so I wrote this song called Nothing But the Radio On. So what I learned is that title, Naked Boys Singing, gave us an audience. And our first audience was older, middle-aged to older gay guys. And they loved the show. And then when we went to New York, a very funny thing happened. The gay guys didn't think the show was cutting edge enough or dirty enough or whatever. So they didn't come like we thought they were going to come to watch the show. But what happened is Jerry Seinfeld's fiance brought her bridal party to see these guys. She had her bridal party at Naked Boys Singing. And it was in New York Magazine. They did an article on it. And from that minute on to 24 years later, it's still playing in New York. And women, straight women's bridal parties are coming to the show. So that title, Naked Boys Singing, made me a lot of money. So titles are very, very important to me. Any questions?
So
You know?
Mark, you mentioned this extension school where the guy referred you and you learned a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
When you put this book together, I mean, does everything in there represent what you learned at the extension school, or is this more like stuff that you learned some things at the extension school, but experience led you to other things? I'm just curious.
It's a culmination of everything I've been learning and teaching for the last 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is a lot of the asides. I do something in this book where I do Mark digresses. And one of the things I'm a nerd. I'm a songwriting nerd. I've been reading Billboard magazine since I was 8 years old. And since I was 8 years old, there's been a lot of changes. And I digress and I talk about those changes. And one of the big changes that happened was actually a little bit before my time. And it was really, there's been two major seismic changes in songwriting. And the first one was rock and roll. And what rock and roll did is it brought in verse chorus. Before rock and roll, AABA was the #1 form. After rock and roll came in a matter of 2 years, verse chorus became the preferred form, and it still is now. And the other thing that came in with rock and roll was imperfect slant rhymes. And this literally almost probably killed those old Tin Pan Alley, Great American Songbook writers. They never could understand, they called it non-rhymes. They hated it. And here's another anecdote. There's a guy named, oh, I'm so bad. He wrote Nice and Easy. Lou Spence.
Yeah.
Lovely guy. I became friends with him. And he went to a show with me at the Gardenia, which is our little cabaret club in Los Angeles. And the guy was singing and he'd go, perfect rhyme, non-rhyme, perfect rhyme, I swear. The whole show was perfect rhyme, non-rhyme. He drove me crazy. And to him and to Irving Berlin and to Steve, I have a great anecdote and I can't remember it, so you're going to have to read in the book, when Stephen Sondheim meets Randy Newman. And at the end of Randy Newman wrote a musical, Faust. And Stephen Sondheim comes up to Randy Newman and says, Randy, you're much better than using imperfect rhymes. And Randy Newman said, no, I'm not. And then he said some other funny stuff. So, but honestly, I was 25 years ago when I started writing for musical theater. I was a babe in the woods, and I didn't know that there were, I call them rhyme Nazis, but I immediately learned because somebody came up to me and said, you're not rhyming correctly. And I said, what do you mean? You know, I'm rhyming blue and shoes. That's fine. And they went, no, it's got to be perfect, you know? So, so there's definitely, that was the other big change that happened. And I do a Mark digresses. There's plenty of Mark digresses in the book. And I talk about those changes. And Roger knows that, right? Roger, I have plenty of Mark digresses. And I love my Mark digresses. And my editor just hated them.
It's really good.
He said, you really have to do another one, you know? But I really think, so this is the other thing I like about my book. So am I talking too much, Alexis?
No, it's good.
Okay, The other thing I like about my book is I've read about 16 books on songwriting. And my favorite book on songwriting is Jimmy Webb's book, Tunesmith. It's a great book. My second favorite is Sheila Davis, The Craft of Writing Lyrics. Those are my favorite books. There's a lot of them I don't like. And lots of them are really too dry. They're so boring, you know? And my book may be many things, but I don't think it's boring. I keep it interesting, and I've got a breezy style. And my editor got on me about it, but my publisher liked my breezy style. He said, keep going with the breezy style. I like it. So that's cool.
Mark, do you want to talk about writing lyrics to jazz instrumentals?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things I've done for a long time is I write to jazz instrumentals. And I'm a jazz singer, so it makes sense. And I love instrumentals. And I love John Hendricks and Eddie Jefferson and Lorraine Feather. And they all write to jazz instrumentals or have written to jazz instrumentals. So I have two. And there's one really good reason, other than writing, having fun and writing a great song. And that is, you can meet these musicians. And I've met and become friends with a lot of musicians because I wrote lyrics to their instrumental. And I think the first success I had with it was, I love this Joe Sample tune, Night Flight. I love Joe Sample. And I love you guys because I know you know who Joe Sample is. If I was in my UCLA class, they'd go, who? But I wrote lyrics to his song, Night Flight. And I made a little demo. And it so happened that I knew his manager. I knew how to get the song to his manager. And one night I get a call from Joe Sample. And he says, I really like your lyrics to my song. But I think there's a couple of places where I'd like to work with you on it. Can we meet? And I went, can we meet? Are you kidding? It's Joe Sample. So I go over to the studio and he's there. And one of the greatest days I ever had was having Joe Sample playing the piano in this little rehearsal room while I'm working on the lyric to Night Flight. And from that minute on, I realized I could meet jazz musicians by writing lyrics to their songs. Have you found that, Karen? Did you write lyrics to Peter Eldridge, or am I wrong?
I mean, I wrote not to something that was a preformed instrumental. We on the stuff that he and I wrote for my record, he predominantly wrote the music, and but I have definitely, like, over the past maybe year and a half, been doing a lot more of that, like expanding vocalese into setting lyrics to tunes, and to me it just totally, like, opened up a whole other world of how I write, like, kind of got me out of my patterns. It was like, because it's in its own way, it's kind of a collaboration without the other musician really, like, being there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
As a quick aside, we're having a class on that particular topic.
I saw. I
Amy
think I
Biondo
signed up
on
for it.
Yeah, September 26th at 3 p.m. with Amy
Yeah.
Biondo about writing lyrics to jazz songs. So
that would be interesting to see how she and I differ.
yeah, you should come by the class. I'll comp you.
Okay, I will come by. So just for a second, so the people, a lot of you've taken my class. So the number one thing you do to start writing a lyric for jazz instrumental is what, Cass? Is Cass around? I don't see her. Okay, Cass, what do you do? What's the first thing you do when you're writing a lyric to a jazz instrumental?
Well, I haven't written one to a jazz instrumental. Oh, yes, I have. Yours.
Yeah. Well, that's actually the reverse. You were putting my lyrics to music.
Oh yeah, that's true. But I found an instrumental to then put it to.
Okay.
What's the first thing? I don't know.
Okay, so you have to identify the form. That's
Uh,
number one. And the reason you do that is because you've got to know where to place the title. So if it's AABA, your title is in the first line or the last line of the A. If it's verse chorus, your title is in the first line, the last line of the chorus, or every line of the chorus, or, you know, somewhere there. And then once I identify where I put the title, I count up how many syllables the title is. And then I go to my title folder, which I will explain to people. I see that, Alva, you took my class, right? Yeah, okay. So I hope everybody's keeping their title folders.
I love the title folder.
Oh, thanks. I do too. So what I do is I go to my title folder and I literally look for songs with that number of syllables. So if the title is 5 syllables, I look for titles with 5 syllables. And I can't tell you how many times I just find the title and it works. So that's the first thing I do. Then once I get the title, I come up with a story plot, and then it's like the Mark Winkler method of writing songs. But the first thing I do is I identify the form.
And
So
Mark, I'm so sorry. Can I ask you, in terms of identifying the form, so are you kind of breaking out, like just looking at what the musical themes are, like to kind of figure out, oh, that would be an A section, or that would be a B section, or that this is just soloing over changes?
yeah, if it's
You know.
soloing over changes, that's a vocalese.
Okay.
And that's a good question, Karen, because yeah, there is another thing, and that's called a vocalese. And that's writing to an instrumental solo. And that doesn't have it doesn't have a form.
Right.
It has blowing, which is great. But if it's a song, usually at the head of the song, they're going to go through the form. Then they'll deviate from the form. I mean, it's jazz, and it can be a lot of things. But I've written, I don't know, I've written with, let's see, who I've written with. Wayne Shorter, Joe Sample, Don Grusin, David Benoit. Who did I just write with? I've written with a lot of jazz instrumentalists, and I identify the form. So yeah, so generally it's the head of the tune, and that's what I use as the form. Okay? I'm going to give my little anecdote about writing for a jazz instrumental. And Alexis, should we, let me give the story and then we'll play the song. Okay? Okay, so this is from my book. Mark digresses. A couple of years ago, Claire Martin phoned me and asked me to write some lyrics for a tribute album she was going to be recording featuring the songs of Wes Montgomery. Claire is a world-class singer who over the years has done quite a few of my songs and has become a good friend. I love Wes Montgomery too. When I was in high school, I was taken by his unique style of playing, and for some reason I can't read in the slide, and the incredible albums he made with Creed Taylor. Claire asked me to write lyrics for Wes's tune, Bumpin', and I said, that's my favorite song of his. Soon thereafter, I wrote a lyric with my wonderful co-writer, Shelley Nyman, and we called the new song, I Could Get Used to This. When I played it for Claire, she flipped for it, and then asked me to write a couple more songs from the Wes Montgomery songbook, which I did. Then about a week later, in the middle of the night, I woke up in a cold sweat with one question on my mind. Did Claire have the publisher's permission to do this? Of course she did, I thought, and went back to sleep. As you now know, I've put lyrics to jazz songs many times in the past, and the rule is to get in contact with the publisher first and see if they are open to having a lyric written to their song. Some are, and some aren't. Sometimes the catalogs of these jazz greats are run by warring families, or by very protective publishers, or by large corporations that can't be bothered, like Warner Chappell. You must reach out and see what the story is. The lyric you write can be sensational, but sometimes there can be an extenuating circumstance you know nothing about. And then I give the lyric to Bumpin'. So let's hear it. And this is me doing Bumpin'.
Awesome. Okay, share screen.
Yeah. I could get used to this, feeling fine, talking all through the night, no sense of time. I could get used to this, the words that you said, champagne and coffee cups, breakfast in bed. I could get used to this, loving you. So why haven't I told you when I know that it's true? I could get used to this, taking things slow, dancing cheek to cheek, lights way down low. I could get used to this, to not being alone, turning this house I had into a home. I could get used to this, loving you. So why haven't I told you when I know that it's true? Thank you.
Yeah, that's Dave Tone.
I could get used to this, your sweet face, way that you look at me, things falling in place. I could get used to this, know that I should break down these walls I built, make a change for the good. I could get used to this, loving you. So why haven't I told you when I know that it's true? Why haven't I told you so? Maybe it's time, maybe it's time that I do. Rich James, Grant Geisman. I wrote the lyric with Shelley Nyman.
Hey guys.
Okay. So,
Mark, I can get used to that.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Killing Mark, just great.
Oh, thank you. Luckily I've had Tom Francini recorded it, and Claire Martin has recorded it. She did do it. And Marsha Bardamente is going to be recording it, and it's nice. It's lovely when people record your songs. So I called Claire, and unfortunately, she had collected about 8 different lyrics from 3 different lyricists, including me, but hadn't called the publisher. Somehow I was chosen to make the call. I must admit, while professional, the woman on the other end of the line was fairly intimidating. I told her that I had written lyrics for Bumpin', one of Wes Montgomery's most famous instrumentals, and she quickly informed me that over the last 40 years, many lyricists had tried their hand with the song, but she had not granted them the rights. My heart sank. I asked her if I could send her a demo of my lyric, and she agreed. Amazingly, she called me back quickly. And in show business, if you get a call back quickly, it's almost always good news. And told me she loved my lyric and would grant me the publishing rights, along with Shelley. Now, I was cocky, so I submitted my other 2 Wes Montgomery lyrics, and she promptly rejected them. In my humble opinion, the lyrics were great, but it's the publisher's prerogative. Yeah, didn't Bobby Brown have a song called My Prerogative? To grant permission. So scope out the situation first. So, and she turned down all the other lyrics that Claire sent her. So it's a crapshoot when you're writing lyrics, but luckily she approved that one. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about some different exercises in the book that people can try?
Yeah. So one of my favorite exercises is writing to Penny Lane, the Beatles song. And I guess I've been doing that song for about the whole time I've been teaching. And I like it because it does many things. It first of all, I always believe if you're gonna write something, and write with the masters, like Rubens, or Picasso. He would copy other, the great masters. So I say, let's use the great masters, and the Beatles were the predominant group, one of the greatest songwriters of the last century. And so I love their song, Penny Lane. It's a childhood reminiscence song. And it's also a song that's very visual. It's got a lot of furniture. So I basically have everybody keep to the melody of the song and put in their own childhood. Instead of Penny Lane, I have them take in Penny Lane, in Sherman Oaks, wherever they are, come up with a 3-syllable word where they grew up, and then write about that childhood experience. And it's basically each verse is a vignette, which is a little scene. And then the last verse, all of the characters sort of come together. So it's a great, it's got a great form. And I've had some wonderful songs come out of that. So that's one of my exercises. And then I have a Jimmy Webb song called The Highwayman, which is actually an AAA song, which is the folk form. Which isn't, I don't talk about it that much because it isn't that popular right now. But Jimmy Webb wrote The Highwayman in the AAA form, and each A is another person who gets killed and then gets reincarnated. So I see Cash just put, I've done both of these exercises with you, Mark. Yeah, and you've been great at it. So that's one of my exercises. I also love writing to a picture, because you take the elements, you take a famous picture or a picture you love that has a lot of specific information in it, and you basically use that specific information to color your songs. So that's called write to picture. Okay, many more. I've got a million of them.
Great.
Yeah.
And how
So-
about, oh, go ahead.
on.
No, it's okay. You want to take a little break before I cue up your next talking point?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, does anybody have a question? Beryl's got a question or thought.
Okay, Daryl.
Well, one thing besides learning how to write songs, which is, of course, you've actually helped me to do that tremendously. But you've also introduced me to all kinds of other singers and musicians, that really illustrate your points. But I just wanted to ask you, I've been listening to a lot of your songs,
Thank you.
but I didn't know about you before I took your class a couple of years ago. But anyway, I have a question about In a Quiet Place.
Yeah.
And you call it Kay's song. So could you just talk a little bit about that song? It is just so beautiful and so haunting.
Okay, this is a good story. You asked it, this one has a good story. So I'm good friends with David Benoit. So, I'm not one of these show business people where everybody's my good friend. No, I hardly know anybody. I know people, but they're not my good friends. But David Benoit is my friend. I've known him since 1984, and we've been through a lot together, and I love him. He's a great piano player, great melody writer, and his most famous song is Kay's song. So that's why I put that in parentheses. So the whole deal with David is, for the last 30 years, people have been writing lyrics to Kay's song. And he had an evening once where 15 people sang 15 different lyrics to Kay's song. And they were all pretty bad, actually. Because here's the little dirty little secret, is when you're a famous jazz instrumentalist, people write lyrics to your instrumentals, and most of them aren't very good. Okay? So David gets lyrics all the time, and they're not very good. And he mentions them to me sometimes. So he did a whole evening. So I got very nervous. I said, gee, I really want to write to Kay's song. But that's his biggest song. It's about his wife, Kay Benoit, who he's been married to for 40 years. He loves her. So there's a lot riding on this. So I never wrote it. Then the pandemic happened, and I was going to do an album with David. We had finally realized that David was so bored. He was at home, not on the road, didn't know what to do with himself, and said, let's do an album together, just you and me. So I was in the shower, and Kay's song came on the jazz radio. And all of a sudden, I came up with the first couple of lines. And I really liked it. And I went, oh, wow. Because I tried writing before, and I never came up with anything I liked. And I wasn't going to show him a lyric that wasn't really good, because I didn't want him to say, I don't like that. So I finally came up with something I like, and then I finished it with Shelley Nyman, who wrote I Could Get Used to This With Me. And I like writing with people. One of the great things about writing is you don't have to do it alone. You can write with somebody, and if they're good, they can only make your writing better. And I can write more songs writing with people, and I want to write more songs. So that's my story. So I'm glad you like it, because I wasn't going to write a lyric unless it was really good for that song.
I'm so glad you changed your mind.
Well, it was honestly, I was in the shower, and all of a sudden the lines came.
Were you naked, Mark? I'm just
What?
asking. Were you naked?
I can't hear you. What?
Were you naked?
Oh yeah, I was naked. I should have said no. I had my underwear. But
Did you say that, Wendy?
Of
But
course.
I'll tell you something. There's been Naked Boys Singing has been in every part of the world. It's been in England. It's been in Norway. It's been in Australia. It's been in San Francisco. And I've been to a lot of the different shows and been backstage, seen a lot of naked guys, and I've learned a lot about nudity doing the show. And the one thing I learned about nudity is don't ever step on a cold floor if you're a naked guy. And I think the rest is
Good advice. Or girl.
Yeah.
You should really wear socks.
Yeah, and the other thing is hair dryers are very good. So they use hair dryers to fluff up. Anyway, there's a lot of good stories with Naked Boys singing.
We should
But-
just do a party for that sometime.
Oh my God. Okay, so here's one story about Naked Boys singing. So, you know, it's probably been the most successful thing I've ever been associated with. From the moment it opened, it was a big success. We ran for 4 years in Los Angeles. We've run for 24 years in New York. We got a rave review in the New York Times, got rave reviews in LA. You know, it's just been a tremendous success. So after it opened in LA, we had a big party up at my house. And all the guys came. And I had all this food. And nobody ate anything. Because they were naked. You know, they had to be naked the next day. They weren't going to be eating anything. So I had all this food left over. So that's my story.
Wow.
Any more questions? And then I'm
Well,
gonna.
speaking of naked boys, you want to tell us some dirty little secrets?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a chapter called Dirty Little Secrets. And some of them are, I'm gonna give you the most. Well, I'm not gonna start with it. Okay, here's number one. Sometimes the nicest people aren't very talented. Wouldn't it be great if your nicest friend was the most talented person on the planet and you could just work with them and write and write and write? Guess what? Usually your best friend is just that, your best friend. And when you're working with songwriters and musicians, you need the best people you can find, and sometimes they're not the nicest people. I had a favorite male singer with a voice like a choir boy who decided to record one of my songs. I pinched myself at my good fortune until I went into the recording session. He was one of the most disagreeable and nasty people I have ever met. After he had a voice like an angel, and he's passed away, and I don't really want to mention his name. After glorious vocal take, I gave him a compliment, and he responded like I told him something awful. Yes, he was a recovering addict and was a little down on his luck at the time, but the guy had a total break with reality. However, he sang beautiful. So your mission is to find wonderfully talented people to work with who are nice and respectful with great work habits. It can be done because I do it. Don't put up with lovely people who are honestly not that good, but don't put up with great musicians who are prima donnas either. So who mentioned that I work with Dave Tull? Karen? No, Nancy. Dave Tull is incredibly talented and he's incredibly nice. Grant Geisman, who's a fantastic guitarist, you know, is incredibly great and incredibly nice. So honestly, they have to have both of those things going for them. And it took me a long time. Do you want me to give you another one? Here's an important one, Alexis. Always ask to hear an MP3 of some of their songs on SoundCloud or some of their songs on SoundCloud before you write with someone. In the analog universe, sometimes I'd meet a very nice songwriter and he'd want to write with me and I'd say, come on over to my place and I can hear some of your songs. I wasted many an afternoon listening to bad songs all the way through and then sometimes having lunch with them because, you know, I was trying to be nice. Winkler digresses. Confession time. I hate hearing bad songs. And a lot of the time, I find them funny, which is not a very nice thing to say. I had a friend of a friend I once spent some time with at a party, and he told me he was a songwriter. He seemed smart, and I thought, what the hell? I'll invite him over. He put on his cassette tape. This was way before the internet. And out came the most disjointed mumbo jumbo of a laundry list song I have ever heard. And I really had to look at a point on the ceiling not to laugh. To make it short, be very nice, ask for the best songs and say, send me an MP3. And now you don't have to go through that torture of being stuck with them all afternoon. So now here's my last dirty little secret. I have like 25 of them in the book.
Wow, great.
And this one is, I've got a lot of cojones doing this one. Well, I'll see, okay. Don't believe the best thing said about you. Don't believe the worst thing. The truth lies in the middle. The next paragraph will prove my point. I have cojones. Here's the best review I've gotten ever. Rex Reed, who's really tough. He can be very, very nasty. He writes for the New York Observer. He wrote this. Mark Winkler is a musical marvel. Finally, a writer who sings and a singer who can swing. I use this all the time. What a wonderful review. And here's the worst. And this is pretty bad. Okay, I'm bold and brave. Okay, I did a show in San Diego about 7 years ago. And I must say that the show didn't go so well. And the reason it didn't go so well is I thought I was going to be on for an hour, and they told me I was going to be on for 2 hours. So I was calling up tunes. We were putting in way too many instrumentals, you know, stuff like that. So I don't think the show was that good anyway. So this is the reviewer from the San Diego Reader who reviewed me. I find it funny now. In the 2.5 years I've been doing concert reviews, I've seen literally hundreds of shows, and without a doubt, some of the best ones have been jazz live presentations. Sadly, last night's performance by Mark Winkler was not one of them. I had conflicting clues about the gig. On one hand, some glowing reviews of Winkler, CDs from Winkler CDs from the likes of All About Jazz and Jazz Times. On the flip side, a friend with serious jazz credentials warned me his vocals sound like fingernails on a blackboard. Robert Bush, San Diego Reader. Okay, that set me back a couple of days. The truth is, as it often is probably, it's somewhere between the two. I'm probably not a musical marvel, but I'm probably not Yoko Ono either. Some artists never read the reviews, but I usually do. But the reality test is the general consensus of the reviews that you're getting. And most importantly, are you booking gigs, getting songs recorded, and putting out albums? If everywhere you turn, the bad reviews are creeping in, you can't get booked, and no one wants to record your songs, that's the thing you should be looking at. And truthfully, reviews can point out things that are working and things that aren't. So that's my bold one. That's the worst review.
That's great. And that's such a great perspective check to believe it's all somewhere about in the middle.
Yeah.
Really great.
And
Mark, can I ask a question? You said you find it funny now, but how did you
Oh.
receive that at the time?
I remember exactly where I was. I was just ready to go in and watch a movie with my husband. And I said, oh, let me check if I got the review yet, because I knew he was reviewing me. And it came up on the internet. And I said to him, my husband, Richard, I said, give me a half an hour. You know, I couldn't, you know, it took me a minute. It's never pleasant seeing. Luckily, I must say, I haven't really gotten that many bad reviews, you know, and I have, you know, I don't want to jinx it. I haven't gotten a bad review in like 5 years, but it's never pleasant when you get it. Anybody else got any bad reviews? Be honest.
Sure.
Really, Alexis?
I got the thing that I disliked the most was actually from Christopher Loudon, who gave me so much great press over the years and said so many loving things. But when I made that album with Bucky Pizzarelli, he said Cole completely eclipsed, but it would have been nice to hear Bucky's musicality come through, but Cole eclipsed him. And I'm like, all I did was sing the heads. He picked all the songs, and even on the cover of the album, his face is in front and mine's in back. I'm like, the whole thing was to showcase Bucky and like our friendship. And so that, even though it wasn't like a bad review, it hurt my feelings. So I'm still talking about it. Like that was 2015. So yeah, it was really.
It's true. It's true. Nancy, what was your bad review?
Mine was early on, and it was actually just a local guy, but it was like my first review that I did a Christmas album with my now ex-husband that was different. This guy had seen me before playing in a jazz band in you know, like straight ahead swing with a horn section and stuff. So that was his bent. And I didn't know enough about like, oh, you should probably send music that is the style that this person likes. And so I sent him this stuff that we did for this Christmas album, and he had thought, oh, goody, a swing Christmas album. And it was like kind of, new wave. It was like the late 80s, early 90s. And so it was totally not what he liked, and he just panned it. And it was my first time of like, oh, I guess you should be a little more strategic.
But I put out an album called Sweet Spot, which is really a good album of mine. But it's me with a sucker in my mouth. I've got it's called Sweet Spot. So I got a sucker in my mouth, and I have some of the nastiest comments online about this, and I wasn't expecting it. I thought it was funny. And so, but when you're in the kitchen, sometimes you're gonna get burned, and that's part of we're putting our stuff out there, and you're not everybody's gonna like what you do, and that's a good thing to know. All you have to do is go on. Alexa.
I think that, kind of how you started this segment about just not letting the great things in too deep, and not letting the bad things in too deep. And I think, like, oh, great, somebody loves my album. That's great. I'm just doing what I'm doing, and if people like it, that's great. I'm happy, but it doesn't rule my world or anything. And that way, when people don't like it, it doesn't rule your world either. You just do it. But we digress. We should be focusing on lyric writing in your book. So I
was going to say this, Alexis. So my book is more than lyric writing. It's lessons I've learned as a songwriter, and I think that's what makes the book a little more special. Not that there isn't, you can just take the major stuff in the book and learn how to write a wonderful song, but there's also the extra added advantage of I've done things, I work, I have a funny story about working with a terrible collaborator. And I worked with 97% of the people I worked with have been fabulous, but I did have a couple of bad experiences. So the book also is life experiences and what I've learned, and so I can't hide it, so
that's so great. And I'm really excited. Thank you for sending me my copy. And so I'm going to just press enter there on the chat. So this is how you can buy this book. You can get it right now from Mark's publisher,
Yes.
30% discount. He has the link there, and you just enter the code that's in the chat, or you can buy it directly from Mark. And Mark, I was delighted to see. At first, I was like, "What? Mark didn't sign it." I was very disappointed, but then I got my own signed copy. So I'd highly recommend, since we're all Mark's friends and fans, just buying it directly from Mark so he can send you a copy, because I think it's really neat. You can read anything digitally these days, but to have an actual book that's signed is really special.
Yeah, and if you bought a book, send me your address and I will sign it for you and send you a sticker that you can put in the book.
Oh, that's really nice.
So if you've already bought the book, send me your address and I will sign it for you.
Steph, did you want to say something about that?
Yes. What's that?
I was going to say, I don't want a sticker. I want you signing my book, but I'm local, so that's all good.
You're local, so we can do it. We'll just make time to do it.
Great.
I want to get back to one thing about bad reviews.
Okay.
Naked Boy Singing was just one of those lucky things that happened, and every step of the way was magic. I had another show that opened off Broadway, and I think it's one of my favorite chapters. It's called Writing for Musical Theater. And I talk about getting the night I get all the bad reviews. And I remember it. The show opens and we had a big party and I was sort of numb. And I went back to the hotel with my husband. And at midnight, the reviews start coming in on the internet. And they were bad. And my left hand started shaking, like I was going to have a heart attack, because, this review came in and it was bad. And it wasn't my music. It wasn't my lyrics or music. It was the book, the story that they had problems with, you know. They loved the lead actress, Sally Mays was the star of the show, and she was fantastic. It was called Play It Cool. And I did a really smart thing. And I closed my computer. When my hand was shaking, I said, you know something? I could be here for the next 2 hours beating myself with a wet noodle, you know? Or I could go to bed with my husband and curl up in his arms and have a nice evening. And that's exactly what I did. And that was the most mature thing I've ever done in my life. And it goes in with that, that's, you know, like I did that. But then I also say, there's something that I always do, and not everybody does it. And that is, I always ask myself first, what do I think of the play? What do I think of the song I've just written? What do I think of my vocal? And, you know, and sometimes I don't know, you know, but a lot of times I do. I develop my gut where I go, you know, this is really good. And I think that show is really good. And we had a real successful run of it in Los Angeles. And I give the reasons why I think the show didn't do as well in New York. But I like the show, and I'm proud of the show. I'm proud of the music I wrote for it. I thought the cast was great. So I always go back to my gut, because we've all met people whose opinion are the last opinions they've gotten. Somebody tells them your song stinks, they'll think their song stinks. And if they say your song's great, they'll think the song is great. So I don't do that. I go to myself, I think this song, is it good or not? So I always check first with myself. That's it. That's a secret.
You know, Mark, could we take a second?
Yeah.
Well, I'm worried if we've passed the hour. Some people
I
might,
know.
but you can, we're going to stay on and just ask a few more questions for a minute. But can we just take a selfie with the book?
I love it.
Who has the book? Hold up the book if you have it.
I got one.
Oh, great. Jonathan, can you put your phone sideways so you can be big since you have the book? Yay, it worked. Oh, you
Hi,
guys,
Jonathan.
great. We'll give Veronica and Janet and Georgia
Hi.
and Jim
Hi, Leah.
put their cameras on if they want. Yeah, and if anybody doesn't want to be in the picture, now's a good time to turn your camera off. Yay. Oh, you got your digital file. Okay. Oh,
Okay.
great, Georgia. Okay. I gotta do the press the thing and then I'll hold my book up. Hang on. Coming at
Okay.
you. Okay. Oh, this is so great, guys. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that came out great, guys. Okay, everybody looks good. Good. That's an important, nice thing to have, a memory of the night. So questions, thoughts, comments?
We didn't talk that much about songs. I was giving you a philosophical advice. So
No.
any questions about songs?
Oh, wait, I forgot. Mark, we need to
What?
promote your next class is coming up. It starts on October 1st.
Yes,
I just emailed about it today.
finished my class, and man, I already miss you guys.
Aw.
I love the class. It was great.
And Mark, there's a new development on jazzvoice.com, which is that we have a new function called groups. And so now instead of just going to a web page where you just go get your homework and the videos, it'll be like in an interactive forum. So all the people you can go in there and post your homework, and other people can post their song lyrics or their homework there, and you guys can interact with each other in chat. So I'm really excited. Yours will be the first class that we'll do that with. Excited to see
You're
how
gonna
that
have to show
play
me
out.
how to do it.
Yes, I'll show you how to do it. It'll be from the user end, not from backstage on Wix or anything crazy. So you'll be,
Okay.
I believe in you.
So when's the class starting? It's like
October 1st.
October 1st, Wednesday,
Yeah.
October 1st.
Yep.
And anybody who's taken my class before, take it again, because I promise you, I'll give you another exercise. You won't have to do Penny Lane again. I'll give you another song, and I'll come up with new stuff.
Oh,
I've
great.
started doing that.
I've taken endless classes, Mark.
I know. Steph
You can
is-
take classes for years and years, and it becomes just so part of the fabric of what makes you a great songwriter, and you are the everything that makes us all great songwriters. So it's you can take as many classes as you want. You'll always get something new, whether it's directly from you, Mark, or from your contribution to somebody else's song that makes you think about your own songs. It's really beautiful and collaborative. And I was thinking when you were saying about feedback that you take on from, so to speak, experts that want to comment on your work. Well, it's also about class. It's like you listen and you hear and you don't take on everyone's comments. You think, okay, interesting. I'll leave that. Good point. I'll leave that. I'll consider it for another time. But this, I think, is important. And I think that's what, as you grow as a songwriter, you know what to take on and what not. And I hope for all of us, like as we get feedback from the external world, you've got to let it go. The start, you've got to stay true to yourself, right? That's why we're here.
Yeah. Very good. Very well said. I just write, somebody said to me today, I'm doing a new album in February. And somebody said to me, oh, have you written the songs yet? I said, oh yeah, I've written all the songs. And they go, how did you do it? And I go, I write every day. I write, I'm a writer. So my favorite thing is is the process, is writing the songs, So-
Mark, there's some questions in the chat about
Yes.
international shipping, and maybe
Yes.
Roger's still here too, if you guys have any way in. Is it okay? Do you guys ship to Australia and Hong Kong?
I don't know. Yes, I actually had lunch with my publisher today, and I asked, I don't really know. Roger, do you know?
No, I've actually bought it on Kindle, and I was going to wait to get a copy from you when I'm maybe next in LA, get a signed copy. But
Okay.
so I did it electronically.
I don't know the answer, Alexis.
Okay.
I think it's about $10 to ship it.
Well, to internationally?
Yeah.
Um,
It's media rate.
okay. Well, give it a try, ladies, and let us know. Report back to Mark. I put Mark's email in the I know the jazzvoice.com store is hoping to carry it, and we are working on that, but we didn't get it together in time for tonight. So we do ship internationally, so you could also keep an eye on the jazzvoice.com bookstore for that, but it's not 100% sure that it's happening. But I think most publishers ship all over the world, so I can't imagine it's going to be, a problem. You just have to pay, and we don't know what that is. The international shipping's gotten crazy. I bet it's closer to 16 or 18.
Okay, I'm going to find out tomorrow.
Okay.
That's something I'm
Great.
going to take on and find out. Any more questions? I'm looking. I have something. No, okay. Wait a minute. I see. $40. Oh yeah, that's $40 to get it.
But that's great to know, Roger. Thanks for letting us know about the Kindle version. That's really awesome.
So, Mark, I have a question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite cover of one of your songs? If you had someone do one of your songs, you hear it and you say, you added something to it that I didn't think about when I was writing it. You made me feel that story differently. Or is it just a case, what's your favorite cover of a song?
Claire Martin, Another Night.
Okay, I'll look for it.
I performed in London recently, and Claire was my special guest, and she sang that song, and I was thinking it doesn't get better than this, which is a good title for a tune. Doesn't get better than this. But the other one is Diane Reeves doing my song, The Land of the Loving. She's just an incredible singer, and I've been lucky enough to have her do about 3 of my songs. So I love nothing more than somebody doing one of my tunes. Like Cass Eager, I want her to record one of my tunes, or one of our tunes, because she's a great singer. I want Alexis to do one of my tunes. I want every singer in the place, I've got all these great singers. Okay, hey. But nothing makes me happier. I like it far more than singing my own songs. I love hearing singers do my tunes.
That's so great. Hey, Mark, I was in the studio with my father, also named Mark, last week. We went in the studio and recorded his songs. I've been working. He turned 70, he's about to turn 75 next month, but for his 70th birthday, I gave him the gift of having a bunch of we got 40 of his songs transcribed. And then,
fantastic.
yeah, we were just able to use those charts we made into lead sheets and get into the studio, and we recorded 3 of them. And it's just been such a pleasure, like seeing his music come to fruition. So it really, my dad is one of the reasons I started Jazz Voice. My dad and my grandmother are both sort of semi-professional singers, or amateur, meaning for the love of, singers who don't really do it for the as a career. And getting to see him and so many of you guys too, like bring your musical dreams to fulfillment, your writing to fulfillment. It's so satisfying for me as I'm like an enabler, in a good way, I hope. But it's really been so wonderful, Mark, to have you help so many people on Jazz Voice to bring their creative dreams to fruition, to help them with the exercises and with the assignments and the accountability to help to write these songs. And we get great feedback about how wonderful that's been for them, especially the people who take your classes over and over. So I'm really excited. Thank you for taking the time. Oh, Georgia, that's so sweet. Thank you for taking the time to put all your thoughts into a book. That's really time consuming. And I think people don't think of this, but I always think what a generous thing for people to do when they take the time to put their thoughts down, organize it, and work systematically, because it's a really challenging thing. And you said it was hard and you made it happen. So I'm so proud of you and happy for you and grateful to you for taking your time to share your thoughts and wisdom with us in a way that we can digest it this week, this month, this year, and for many years to come. So thank you so much, Mark. You're a treasure.
Thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to say one more thing. This is my
Yeah.
final thought about songwriting. I can teach you the techniques to write a good song, but the most important thing is what you say in your song. And the more I've been doing this, I've written about 300 songs in the 44 years I've been writing. And the songs that I like of mine, the best, say something really interesting. So that's what I want to say is like, just as coming up with a good title, also think of, and I think where you start is scare yourself. Write the thing you really want to say to your lover. Write the thing you really want to say to the world. Write the thing nobody else has ever said because they're not you. And I'm gonna bring it back to me. I'm 75 years old. This has been a very big year for me. And I'm writing about being my age. We live in a fucking ageist society, and I am standing up to it. And I wrote a song called Late Bloomin' Jasmine. I sang a song called The Rules Don't Apply. I wrote another song called Old Enough. And I'm writing stuff that nobody else is writing because they're either too afraid to say they're older, or, people my age just don't write songs anymore. Whatever, I'm embracing my otherness, So I in my classes, I've had trans students. And to be honest, I love having them because they have so much to say in this world, but we all have so much to say. We all have mothers who tried their best, but failed maybe sometimes. We all had fathers. We all had friends who died too soon. Write about the stuff that makes your insides quiver. That's what I'll end with. Because songwriting is an emotional thing. Write about your father who is finally doing the songs because of you. I love all that. Don't write a stupid songs. I never want a student of mine to say when I say, oh, what do you think of the song? Oh, I don't care. No, you have to care about your songs. They can be funny, but you have to care about them. So it's what you have to say. And I know all of you have plenty to say because I know all of you. Okay, that's it.
Great. Thank you
So
so
thanks.
much, Mark. And thank you
Okay.
to all of you for coming out tonight. There's a lot of new faces, so I just want to mention that jazzvoice.com is a great place for vocal jazz education, and I hope you'll check out the site if you're unfamiliar with it. And we meet up there about 5 or 6 times a month for different things. And we're launching a new jam session where you can come and sing your songs. It's the old jam session, but everything is new again. And we're sort of rebranding Jocelyn Sunday Jam as the Jazz Voice and Vocal Jazz Summit Jam. So that's coming up October 6th. I'm really excited about that first one. And next week we have master classes with Catherine Russell and Greta
I
Matassa.
love Catherine Russell. She's
Yes,
fantastic.
it's going to be such a great week. I can't wait. So please sign up for those if you haven't already. And every video of every class on Jazz Voice is available to watch. And if you're not a member, they're just $15. And every class and every video can be bought just one-off for $15, or you can buy a membership to our site for just $35 a month. You can come to every class and watch every video of about 400 videos in our library. So that's really exciting. And I also want to mention next on the 16th, Monday, we're going to be starting as a group our asynchronous piano class and lead sheet writing workshops. Those are in online courses and you can get 25% off just as a little push we're doing, so that we're all going to start together. And you can do them on your own, but it's just people buy them and then they kind of blow it off. So it's better to do it together. So we're going to all start them together on Monday. So if you haven't checked out those courses, go to online courses in the main menu and check them out. And I'll be sending an email about that soon too. Like tonight.
Thank you, Alexis, for having me. I really appreciate
Oh
it.
gosh, Mark, thank you so much. Sorry for the big PSA at the end here, but I got to get it in. And
No.
thank you for you're such a big part of our community, Mark. I can't imagine us without you. So thank you for all you
Oh,
contribute.
thanks.
And thank you for writing this book. And thank you. I'm like, Mark, it's okay. I could get the Kindle copy. He's like, no, I want you to have a copy. And I'm really grateful to you. Thank you. That means so much to me, Mark. I really appreciate it. So thank you for writing this, and thank you for sending it. And thank you for sharing this evening with us, Mark, and everyone else.
I love you all.
Oh, have a
Okay,
great
thanks
night,
a lot.
everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.